Do you ever wake up in the morning feeling overwhelmed? You want to show up with joy. You want to show up with peace. You want to show up with gratitude, but it doesn't take long for you to feel overwhelmed. This is Shandy's Sacred Space, and I'm so glad you are here. Today, we will be talking about God's grace and how it helps us tremendously in motherhood. In 2 Corinthians 12:9, we read, "But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me." Recently, I have felt quite overwhelmed with my responsibilities, and so I've been looking into scriptures that will help me in the midst of my overwhelm, and I want to share those with you today. In this scripture, Paul is recounting what God told him personally in the middle of his own suffering. God's grace, his undeserved kindness, his strength, and his help is enough. Not our strength, not a perfect routine, not a quiet house. Grace is what sustains us when we feel like we're barely holding it together. God's strength doesn't just cover your weakness, it shows up more fully when you are weak. Your overwhelm isn't a sign that God is far, it's a space where his power is invited in. Paul says that he will boast in the Lord. Paul says, "I no longer resent or hide my weakness. I welcome it because it becomes a channel for Christ's power working in me." When you stop pretending you have it all together, the actual power of Jesus rests on you like a covering. It's not about proving your strength, but yielding to his. We must name the weakness without shame. Instead of trying to muscle through the chaos, acknowledge when we are weak. We can say a prayer out loud. "Lord, I feel overwhelmed by all of these needs today. I feel impatient, exhausted, and stretched. But you said your grace is enough. Be strong for me where I am weak today." We can say it out loud, we can journal it, and we can invite God into the midst of our overwhelm rather than waiting for it to pass. We can turn weak moments into worship moments. The moment we feel triggered or frustrated, drained, we can turn our focus, we can turn our attention to God and pray. We can use a phrase that I recently learned, and it just says, "Rest on me." It's not about doing more, but rather resting under his power. We can shift the mindset from performance to dependence. When you're overwhelmed, it's often because you're trying to do more than you were meant to do at one time. So we can ask ourselves, am I leaning on my own strength today, or am I leaning on God's strength today? Helpful phrases like, "His grace is enough," "Christ's power is resting on me," "Weakness is not failure, it's an invitation to turn to God in prayer," are helpful phrases we can use in the midst of our overwhelm. God does not call us to be a supermom. God calls us to be a surrendered mom. God never asks us to carry motherhood alone. He never asked us to be strong all the time. He asks us to lean in and trust in him through the midst of the overwhelm, the exhaustion, and the frustration. Weakness is not the enemy of motherhood. Weakness is an invitation for us to turn to God and ask Him for whatever it is that we are in need of. So let's train our minds together today to be able to reach out to God and turn to God in prayer in the midst of the overwhelm, so we stop shutting down, so we stop reacting out of the flesh, and so we stop getting in this mindset of, I hate being a mother, motherhood is too hard, this is too much for me, or whatever phrases that you may think about throughout the day that you're not proud of, or that you're embarrassed of, or that you just want to stop entertaining. Number one, we must notice the trigger. Every time you feel a spike of stress, impatience, or emotional overload, pause. This is your signal to pause. Ask, what am I feeling right now? Where am I holding tension in my body? Am I trying to carry this alone? Number two, pause and breathe. I recently learned a new phrase that has been helpful. Breathe, bless, and begin again. When we start feeling overwhelmed or stressed out, we need to train our minds to stop. Breathe, bless, and begin again. Every 10 seconds of deep breathing helps your nervous system reset. If we can train our minds to stop and breathe when we are feeling overwhelmed, we will be so much more likely to walk in the fruit of the Spirit rather than reacting out of the flesh. God, I'm feeling it again. I invite you into this moment. Be near to me and help me to slow down and breathe and not to speak out of anger or frustration. It doesn't have to be long, it just has to be real. Notice the trigger, pause and breathe, and number three, speak truth over the emotion. You are not trying to pretend you're okay. You are anchoring in truth while being honest. Some examples would be, I feel overwhelmed, but you promise your grace is enough. This all feels like way too much, but nothing is too much for you. I am not alone in this moment. You are my refuge. And number four, make it a reflex through repetition. This kind of mental shift takes practice, but it becomes second nature over time, just like muscle memory. The more we interrupt our overwhelm with invitation, the more our brain will begin to automatically seek God through prayer in those pressure-filled moments. You can start with a phrase like, God, I need your help right now. God, I need your strength. Please help me in this moment. I am so happy that you watched this video. I pray that it encouraged you. It gave you a refreshing new sense of hope and joy in motherhood. Like it, subscribe, share it with another mom who could use some encouragement, and I hope to see you again next time.